Guys, we are seeing wave of visa refusals. People who are applying for visitor visas, study permits, SOWPs like spousal open work permits. In fact, visitor visas for parents of permanent residents, visitor visas for parents of work permit holders. Not only that, super visa applications. I am seeing a wave of refusals. People come and speak with me. We have so many consultations all around the day, and the permits are being cancelled or the applications are being refused in as short as 3 days only. Guys, in this video today, we will take a deeper look into what's causing this. What are the remedies available if you or your family member or a person you know has seen this refusal in the recent times? What are the next steps? What should they do? And also, why do you think this is happening? And what steps could you take to avoid these as much as possible? Guys, please be sure to watch the video till the end. My name is Sahil. Guys, welcome back once again. My name is Sahil and I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant and I practice here in Ontario. My office is here. If you have to get in touch with us, my number is on the screen and the details are there in the description box. More than happy to speak with you. Before we proceed any further, please make sure that you hit the subscribe button and the bell icon because we talk a lot about Canadian immigration. And if you are an aspirant to moving to Canada, then this is the channel that you must be subscribed to all the time. So, guys, the important news today is that Canada is now throwing away a wave of visitor visas, spousal open work permit, study permit refusals all across. And it is not just one nationality, but a lot of people are facing these refusals. And because Indian applicants happen to be a major chunk of the applicant base, a lot of Indians you would see on social media and everywhere else, especially when I am, taking my consultations and meeting people, then I see a lot of refusals coming in. But there are a couple of reasons which I think are triggering these particular wave of refusals. One is that Canada has now shifted from a lenient processing to a more stricter processing. We all know that recently Canada declared its immigration levels plan, and this time they are not only focusing on the number of permanent residents entering the country, they now have levels for temporary residents coming to the country as well. Now, temporary residents will include numbers for visitors, will include numbers for work permit holders and study permits. Because Canada cannot give visas to all applicants, they have their own set parameters where they do a natural filtration process with the help of their bot, which is Chinook, which is an artificial intelligence support mechanism. A lot of people think that these AI related refusals are automated. Guys, let me tell you, in Canada or IRCC has given a clarification back to back a lot of times that Chinook or any other AI processing is not authorized to refuse by itself. But the system can give a recommendation and the refusal goes to a secondary. The secondary officer takes a look at the file and take a decision to refuse or to approve. Generally, we have seen refusals coming through in as short as 3 days. So the shift from lenient processing to a stricter processing is one of the major issues. The stressed Indo-Canadian relationships, that is one of the major cause. The last year we saw a lot of issues around multiple socio-economic issues that were happening between India and Canada, and we have seen that number come through. A lot of increased asylum claims recently. It has gone up from countries like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. Obviously the situations in all of these countries are not so favorable. So people have now started claiming refugee claims. And this is not only for people who are coming from outside Canada, but a lot of students, workers who were inside Canada already were facing expiry of those permits, did not want to leave Canada, hence they started claiming fake asylums. That has also ruined the reputation of temporary residents to a larger extent. Hence, Canada is now adopting a more stricter view towards processing new applications because they want to be very, very specific in the kind of people who hit the shores and with the least possibility of them claiming another refugee claim, right? So that is also causing a lot of stress. Also, of late, India's NDP National Documentation Package was updated and the chance of espionage, which means spy, that was updated on the India's National Documentation Package. Let me tell you guys, that is not a pleasant sight because that puts a black dot on the name. India is now on a list where more security clearances, possibility of somebody engaging in espionage. I hope you remember that the RCMP or the Prime Minister of Canada himself said that they had proofs or they had news that the Canadian authorities or the High Commission and the top politicians of India were involved in interference in the local administration of the Canadian politics. Hence, they are trying to adopt a more stricter view, although they could not produce a lot of proofs to back them up. But still, the national documentation package was updated, which is not a pleasant sight again. Apart from that, the PCCs are usually another set of requirements, although they're not spelled out clearly in the document checklist. But it is highly recommended that people now start applying with police clearance certificates, because that will help them in establishing the credibility of their candidature. IRCC has been checking documents more specifically, for example, proof of funds, third-party validations, direct verification of funds with the banking institutions in India and all the other countries. Hence, all of this is causing a full stress. Also, on top of that, the immigration levels plan, which clearly signifies that IRCC is giving out refusals left, right, and center. Not only that, the visitors, which are the parents of permanent residents and super visas, and obviously it's a grudge that people have that, we are permanent residents, we are citizens, why can't our parents come to Canada? Guys, the only thing that I have to tell you here is that at the end of the day, what they're applying for is a visitor visa. And while they're deserving of it, Canada and IRCC and CBSA will follow their own set of parameters. All you can do is put together a very, very strong file, put together a very strong reason as to why they want to travel to Canada. Show good funds that they can sustain themselves. The purpose of travel should be very, very clear. Their ties to the home country should be clearly spelled out, and their ties to Canada should be acknowledged properly, and their intent of going back, ties to the home country, should be established well. Then hopefully you would have done your due diligence in preparing a good application, and hopefully then you will be in a better state. Now, the important question is that once if the person is refused, what are the course corrections or what are the next options that a person may have? Now, in my opinion, there are three particular options that a person has after a file is refused. First, the person can go for a reconsideration if the file has been marked with error in law or error in fact. Error in law means the file has been assessed by the officer in a wrong statute, regulation, section of IRPA or IRPR, which should not have been the case. Error in fact means that the officer made an error in noting the credentials of the applicant. For example, wrong name, for example, wrong sum of money, did not acknowledge the documents properly. If the IRCC officer makes a reference to that particular thing, you will be able to identify whether there is an error in fact or not. Obviously, whenever a file is refused, the first step usually is to order GCMS notes, which is the Global Case Management System notes. It is basically a CRM system that IRCC uses, but what you need to do is you have to get those notes, because the refusal letter that you see is usually very standard. It's just a drop down of reasons, but the officer records the reasons back in their CRM. Hence, after a file is refused, the first step is to get those GCMS notes so that you can read through the reasons and then decide your next course of action. Like I said, the first option people normally could be a reconsideration, depending if there is an error or not. If there's no error, then no need to apply for reconsideration, because IRCC will not give any heed to humanitarian-based reconsideration. Please note that. Second is obviously judicial review. If you think that the application that you submitted was the best you could do, the documentation was the best, the IRCC's officer's judgment was not correct, the IRCC's officer did not give you a chance to reply if the document was not assessed properly or given due consideration, then you may try to go for a judicial review. The judicial review is only a written application that is done by a lawyer in Canada, and the judge or the federal court may send it back to IRCC for addressal again, which does not mean that they will approve it for sure, but they will send it to another officer. If they agree to your reasons, they can send it back to IRCC for judgment by another IRCC or CBSA officer. Third action is, of course, if you don't think there is an error in law or fact, or the documentation that you produce could have been better, the third option would be to go for a reapplication. And if there is a reapplication, then I highly recommend that you get a Canadian consultant or a lawyer, practitioner, immigration practitioner inside Canada. We will be able to assist you better in that, because whenever there is a refusal, we have to look at the GCMS notes, look at the reasons of refusals. We will be able to guide you in terms of fixing the documents and also addressing the officer's concerns with the right federal case laws, the precedents, so that the file can be addressed properly. While all of these three options are good as recourse, but please note none of these options will guarantee an approval. None of them can, because at the end of the day, IRCC officer is the one who will make a final decision on your application. Whether you do reconsideration or you do an appeal or you do a reapplication, none of them will guarantee 100% success. They will go back to IRCC, and then if your documentation is good enough and they find merit to your application, the purpose is valid, they will give you a suitable response. Guys, I hope the video today was helpful. It is much detailed. While there are a lot of things to be said in any refusal case, I have tried my best to give you my opinions, and obviously there will be specific situations to each case which we will have to look at it, and then only we can guide you further. If you have anything to discuss with us or a case to work with us on, please feel free to schedule an appointment with us, and we would be more than happy to speak. Once again, we wish you all the best, and we really hope to see you soon in Canada. All the best.